Welcome to the Infuse Compassion podcast, hosted by me, Amy Quisenberry.
And me, Mark Carpenter.
We are on a mission to make this world a kinder place for us all by bringing healthier human connection to communities, families, and organizations of all types and sizes.
Our goal is to create stronger relationships, more inspired teams, increased trust, and improved results.
So let's get started with more ways to infuse compassion into our world.
Welcome, Compassionators, to this episode of the Infuse Compassion podcast. We're so glad that you're with us. As Amy and I have the opportunity to discuss what we learned from our guest last week, Hanna Bauer. Wow, what a great level of energy she has. And I love her commitment to leadership as a whole function. A lot of times you get people that'll focus on leadership processes, or they'll get focused on leadership goal setting or leadership people. And she really is focused on the whole leadership gambit, and just loved what we heard from her. There was so much coming out of that we could apply in so many different ways. She kind of had my head spinning for a little while. So I want to encourage everybody to go back and listen to that episode last week if you haven't had a chance to do so yet. But Amy, what stood out to you from our conversation with Hanna last week?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. I'm gonna start at the top though. Her story from her childhood of when you have something going on with your body that is not just life altering, life threatening, right? Like your heart. And then to be able to apply those experiences later on in life, to not hide from it, to not hope it never happens again, but actually have it as an anchor. She used the phrase to go beyond your circumstances. Yeah. And I think I wrote it down because it was such a powerful phrase, because sometimes we can get stuck in our circumstances. We can get stuck in this judgment, this place of sometimes the circumstances are so heavy, they can actually trap us, right? Yeah. And so for her to say, go beyond, and she talked about the commitment to excellence, which was directly in alignment to commitment to failure, because the excellence wouldn't have been achieved if not for all the failures. And it was just so, out of the gate, bam, like she's in it. She's in it. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm just along for the ride, sister. I just, and even from when she joined, Mark, like, let's talk about that. Just how vibrant she is. I remember just being like, this woman is stunning, just stunning. Yeah. So there's so much more, Mark, but that was a lot right there. So let's get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to that foundation of her personal experience with her health challenge, which was not only life-threatening, but it was rare and unusual. Mm-hmm. And so think about the scariest kinds of medical issues you have to deal with. Mm. For me, the scariest medical issues are where they say, we don't really know what this is. We're practicing medicine here because we're dealing with something that's different, and we're delving into the unknown. Mm-hmm. And I love how, I'm an analogy guy. I love to make comparisons and analogies to things. That is so analogous to business. Because what are the situations as leaders that are the most frightening to be in? It's the ones that are fraught with uncertainty. Yeah. Where it's like, ooh, this is new and different, and we're not exactly sure how to deal with this. And so we've got to try some things with the idea that we might fail with this, and we'll have to adjust. and make some recovery. And we have to be okay with that failure, with the adaptability that comes when that uncertainty comes in. And Hanna talked a lot about the fear in leadership, particularly in those moments where we need to be adaptable or flexible. And fear is such a difficult place to lead from. She made the comment, and I totally agree with this. You don't make good decisions when you're leading from a standpoint of fear. And so how do we overcome that? How do we get past that and to recognize and accept we're going to have some of these challenges. We're going to have to adapt. We're going to have to go through these changes. But can we do it without the fear of, boy, if I make a mistake in this, it's the end? But instead look at it as, let's learn together on this, have the compassion that we can listen and be open and work together on a solution that will, in the end, be better for all of us.
And understanding that when you're doing that, you're creating the psychological safety that's necessary for people to truly be the innovative, they think outside of the box, they rise to the top like you need your employees to be in those difficult moments.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What's the opposite of psychological safety?
Unsafety?
It's fear.
Fear, yeah.
Yeah. And so if that's the symptom of a lack of psychological safety is I'm afraid to speak up. I'm afraid to innovate. I'm afraid to take a risk. In fact, you asked a great question of Hanna when we were talking last week about what are the indicators that psychological safety's there or not there. Mm-hmm. And I loved her first response. And for those of you that saw it, you have to get a repeat on it, because she said, pay attention to what's happening in meetings. Ooh. Are people speaking up? Are they sharing ideas? Are they checked out? Mm-hmm. Are they waiting for others? Are they looking around the room to see who's responding or to see who's even in the room and making a decision on whether they're going to respond by who's there? Yeah. I loved that because those behaviors will show that people either are afraid or they feel psychologically safe. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's so critically important. I can't stress this enough, that silence is speaking volumes to you. Volumes. There's volumes of information in that silence, in the meetings, in when somebody stops by your office, how comfortable, look at their body language. You know, they're so, I just took a training yesterday, and they said that there's a statistic that she said where only 7% of what we're communicating is actually coming out of our mouth. There's so much that we're communicating that unconsciously the other person is picking up. Yeah. And it's, and that, so much of that results in how safe or unsafe the people around you feel. Yeah. You know, I mean, I don't care how happy your tone is. If you're like this, oh, hey, we're doing great today. Yeah, no, we're not. Your arms are crossed, you're rigid, you're all pent up.
And for the record, if I heard you say that, Amy, I would not take that as a happy tone. I would take that as a sarcastic tone.
Oh my gosh, I know. There was like a shrill, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, she made the awareness. Awareness is so key. And I'll go back to the theme that you introduced at the beginning about going beyond your circumstances. You can't change your circumstances until you're aware of what those circumstances are. Yeah. And so being aware of what's going on with people and creating enough psychological safety that people can really tell you, instead of giving you yeah, I'm fine. It's all good. Everything's good. No, it's okay. And if you're looking beyond that to really understand what's happening and have taken the steps to build the rapport so you get the honest answers from people, then you can go beyond your circumstances. You can't get beyond that circumstance without being aware of what's going on that may be leading to that circumstance in the first place.
I have a question for you, Mark. And this was not planned. I'm just, if you watch us, Mark and I don't script, right?
Everybody who listens knows that none of this is planned.
You being the author of Lead Like a Person, Not Like a Position, right? And being the expert in this realm that you are, what advice, guidance, recommendations would you give to a leader who is uncomfortable with conflict? And when I say conflict, I mean it's difficult for them to have the necessary conversations with their team members to help them feel safe, because they're trying to stay on the surface where everything is fine, and they're accepting that everything is fine and really not seeing that something isn't okay. And I like, you get where I'm going.
Yeah.
What do you share with us, please?
Any leader who is uncomfortable with conflict or uncomfortable with raising difficult issues with their team, it goes back to what Hanna was talking about. There is a fear basis in that. And so you have to stop to assess, what am I afraid of? And a lot of times the fear comes from, this person is going to react bad. But if they're going to react bad, they're going to react bad based on your intent in that conversation. And so, I need to talk to this person about improving performance or about, hygiene, whatever it happens to be. I'm scared of how it's going to go. Well, what's your intent in going into that conversation? Because if I need to have a conversation where I'm correcting something, if my intent is I am going in to help that person, I'm going in to help that person go beyond their circumstances and be something better, I can feel more comfortable having that conversation because I know I'm there for the right reason. I know I'm there not to other them or to create more separation, but I'm actually there to build the relationship. I'm there to build them up and to strengthen their ability to succeed. And that's your role as a leader. That's part of what you're doing. If you're not addressing problems, you're not building psychological safety, because you're not helping people see how they can improve. Think about this, Amy. Have you had a time where you got some difficult feedback that you felt okay about?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, why did you feel okay if it was difficult feedback?
Well, first of all, I was raised this way. Like, I was raised with tough love from the perspective of, they called it when I was a kid, constructive feedback. I don't know if we call it that now, but like my mom was real good at, I'm going to give you some constructive feedback, honey, that it's really important for you to hear because X, Y, Z. So one, I was raised that way. And two, I believe in my soul that feedback is a gift.
Yeah.
Just because somebody's sharing something with you doesn't mean 100% you take it gospel, right? But it truly is a gift. And for you to be open-minded and breathe that in and feel it and say, okay, how does this land? What am I going to take from this? And then what is like, okay, maybe that part isn't applicable, but 80% of it is. And you know what? Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
And so that perspective, I'm looking at feedback as a gift that's here to help me. Allows you to feel psychologically safe receiving that feedback. If a leader's not going in with the intent of giving people feedback that's to help them grow, but is going in with the intent of, I'm going to put this person in their place, or I'm based out of fear. And so I don't want to look bad to my leader, so I'm going to make this your problem. That's never going to feel safe to the person, because because the intent is off. We can hear difficult feedback if we believe the person, in this case, the leader, has the intent to help me improve.
And yes, and I also want to say that I have received feedback from managers that have been like in this gotcha, like, I've just been waiting for you to make this mistake, right? And I can see it. And so I'm able to sit back and receive that and say, thank you for sharing your feedback. I appreciate it. And I move on, because in that moment, what I'm seeing is so much of this is about some type of vendetta that they're trying to get through. I've seen this. Now, there have been times where they are spot on. Their delivery is not, but what they've said is, I really needed that. And they're absolutely right. But I think it's important to just underline that it's for the recipient to really determine, to really own how you receive what's being given to you.
Yeah. You made an important comment as we were having this discussion about feedback, where you said, I was raised this way. And so for you, that's how you think. Hanna made a great point in there about, it's really important that you know your people. And so you know what their triggers are, what their backgrounds are. Knowing your background, you likely had leaders who said, I can be super direct with Amy.
Yep.
But any other people who may have had a background where it was any point of failure was an opportunity to be criticized and diminished. Well, I might need to approach that person a little bit different as a leader, and be really, really clear up front about, I want to help you. I want you to succeed wildly. And I have some feedback that's going to help you be successful, so that it doesn't come across as a criticism. You sometimes need to be really, really clear about that with the people you're talking to, based on what their background is.
And this was a huge stumbling block of mine, Mark, in my leadership development, because in my mind, I thought everybody, could benefit from feedback. Well, whether we can or not, that doesn't mean that everybody is okay with receiving it.
Yeah.
And so I remember there was one time where I shared feedback, and it really, the person was not ready for it. And I take 100% ownership of it. I looked back and I was like, there's 50 things, Amy, that you could have done better. And I had to take ownership. I had to apologize, and I had to learn how to be a better partner in from a leadership perspective with this person. And together we were able to grow, and our relationship was stronger as a result of that. But let me tell you, face plant, huge.
Yeah. And we all learn. Hanna talked about that part of the reason she's doing the work that she's doing is because she looks back on some of her leadership opportunities where she didn't listen as well as she could have. This is one of the reasons that I do what I'm doing, is because I look back on times when I was a first-time leader and went, oh, I just cringe at some of the things that I did because I didn't know better. And so our goal is to help leaders to recognize these things earlier. Again, create more awareness of why they're getting what they're getting and how they can change those circumstances to get something better. Because it really sets the tone. Hanna made the point that the senior leaders in an organization, those that are not on the C-suite yet, but they're not frontline leaders, they're in a tough spot. They're in that messy middle because they've got the pressure to perform from the people above them, the C-suite and investors, potentially even customers or suppliers. But they've also got pressure from below, that you're developing these people who need to feel psychologically safe.
Yeah.
And I would add to that those mid-level leaders set the tone for those frontline leaders. Because if they're not treating that next level of leader in a way that creates psychological safety, then they're not going to treat their people that way either. And it has this ripple down effect within the organization as to whether people feel safe. And the psychological safety, as Hanna mentioned, is required for people to innovate, to share ideas. I would even say to share problems. Because if I'm afraid of the reaction I'm going to get from my boss, I'm going to hide problems until they can't be hidden anymore.
Yeah.
And the problem is then they become so big that they're really, really difficult to deal with. And so creating that psychological safety really begins, I think, with that middle level. A lot of times the C-suite are a little more separated from the individuals. And so that mid-level and down is where leadership has the opportunity to create circumstances where people feel it's safe to speak up. And that's how you solve problems. And as Hanna said, to look at those problems as opportunities to learn and grow.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that she talked about that I know you and I both really liked was talking about processes and systems within an organization, but also, well, there was one point where she had said, when you don't have processes and you don't have systems, that's when blame can happen, right? But also to understand that as human beings, we're a part of the process. We're a part of the system. And you can't just look at processes. You can't just look at systems. I know for me, as somebody who builds HR systems, I I'm always I'm always looking at not just the admin's usability of building and launching and managing the system. I'm looking at the end user experience consistently. So, not just building, but when I advise on other people building them, I'm always looking at it from the perspective of usability, adaptability, accessibility, all of that, because it matters. What's your employee's experience as an administrator of the system or as a user of the system?
Yeah, I love the point that she also made about the interrelationship of the different systems within an organization. And she compared it to the different systems within our body based on her health background, that we have a circulatory system, we have a respiratory system, we have a nervous system, but we have a skeletal system. And damage or problems with one of those areas is going to impact the other areas.
That's right.
And so from an organizational standpoint, we need to look at the interrelationship between those different systems. And when we make changes, not just think about, oh, this is going to improve this system, but how is it going to affect other systems?
Yeah.
Or I'm comfortable with my system the way that it is, but it's creating problems for other systems. And so can we make those adaptations so that it works better for all the systems, and particularly, to your point, Amy, for the humans that are working within those systems?
Well, and this is one of the reasons why silos are so damaging. When I was getting my master's in organizational leadership, one of the things that we focused on was the congruency model and the congruency effect. And it's how systems, processes, whatever it is, all of it, there should be alignment. And I think of like cups in your cupboard, right? How stackable they can be, or plates, how stackable they are, right? For things to be able to fit. Your Tupperware and the lid, I don't even know if we have Tupperware anymore, but for people from the 80s, you know what I'm talking about. It matters. It matters for things to be able to fit and function and flow and be usable. Anybody that's ever had a container and a drawer full of lids. Oh my gosh, which lid? How long does it take you to figure out which lid is going to fit on? Forget about it. Are you kidding me?
You're
Right?
triggering,
I mean, and
you're
that's like
triggering
a
me,
really
Amy.
simple. What's that?
You're triggering me. There's a cupboard in my house that I just can't get into for that very reason. And when my wife listens to this episode, she's going to know exactly which cupboard it is.
Sorry, Cindy.
but your point is so solid too, within our businesses, that as we look at that, and can we be adaptable? That was one of the big things Hanna talked about, is adaptability to change. You talked about silos. Why do silos exist? Silos exist out of fear, because they're afraid that if I open up to this other area, something bad might happen. Yeah. And so that's, again, the absence of psychological safety. And so this ties back to infused compassion. The more that we can have the compassion to adapt to change, because it's okay to fail in change and learn from it, the more psychological safety that we're going to build, the fewer silos we're going to have, the more productivity, more creativity that we're going to have within our teams and our organizations.
Yeah. Oh. Absolutely. What else? I mean,
I think we kind of ran the gamut there, didn't we?
I think so. I think so too. Yeah. Oh, you know what? There's one more thing I want to talk about. This was, she talked about, which we could do a whole episode on this. She talked about the BEAT method.
Yeah.
And the belief that when things are chaotic, when there's struggle, when things are challenging, right? When we're pushing that boulder up the hill, to go back to your values and your beliefs. Wait, why am I pushing this boulder up the hill? Why is this so important? How does this make a difference when I get not just to the top, but over the side? Going back to your values and beliefs. I think that's so important to anchor into our purpose, whether it's us as individuals and the life that we're living and the life that we have said, I'm going to live. I've committed to this. Going back to that is so important and keeps us on the path.
And we talk a lot about this in our episodes here, just the podcast generally, about the behaviors that are associated with those values. So what are those core fundamental behaviors that maybe we're getting away from? The circumstances are pushing us away from those. And so again, that goes back to, it's not your circumstances. Don't let the circumstances drive you, but hold on to those core values and the behaviors that drive those values to lead you back on track.
Yeah. Beautiful. Anything else?
That's it for me.
All right.
Great conversation with Hanna, though. And so listeners, if you haven't listened to that episode, go back. You'll really appreciate and enjoy her and connect with her. She just exudes some goodness and desire to make the world a better place. And so we love to have people like Hanna in our world.
That's right. That's right. All right. Take care. Take care, everybody. We'll see you in a week. Bye.
Thanks. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Infused Compassion Podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, please share a review and like the podcast so other compassionators can join us. Until next time, let's all do something each day to infuse compassion into the world. For more information on our guests, see the show notes. For more information on Mark and Amy, go to infusecompassion.com.